Hey. Who's this guy?
Yeah, who's this guy?
Yeah.
So this is an exciting rig review.
So tell me, first of all, let's tell everybody on the channel what we do, why we're here, and what we're supposed to do for this video.
What do? We do RC. That's what we do. What else? Why are we here? We're doing a rig review.
Okay.
And for me, on a personal level, this is a pretty special rig review.
Okay.
Yeah.
We need to get into this by going backwards.
Yeah, I agree. Where this came from, or where it started from.
So this looks like absolutely nothing that I have seen, I think, ever on the bench in my life.
Probably not to this, you know, well, I mean, we've seen lots of trucks on the bench, but not this one in particular, or what this means to me, and probably the hobby when it comes to the starting point, in my opinion.
Do we know when Tamiya actually started? When did Tamiya actually start doing modeling and all that? I mean, Tamiya as a company has done huge amounts of stuff for modeling, with paints and cars and kits and mechanical kits and you know, static models. And when did they actually start doing big models like this one?
So I mean, I love Tamiya, but I can't be an expert. From what I know from the history is, of course, they were building plastic models. You know, they were doing that.
Static models, yeah.
And then at some point, I think in the late 70s, they decided to take that concept and see if they could motorize it in an RC equivalent.
Wow.
And I believe the first one was a Porsche. It was, yeah, I think it was a Porsche. Number one was a Porsche. I'm not sure, a 911 or whatever.
Okay. Wow.
And so this one in particular is also an early Tamiya model RC that they did. I think this is an 81.
Sure.
An 81.
1981.
Yeah.
If you were born after 1981, put a note in the comments.
This one is special because and there are perhaps some critics out there, but this, for what we do at GCM, this was the starting point in the hobby. This, to me, was the first readily available, high quality, scale or realistic looking model of the tiny truck variety. And this is why, being associated with GCM, this is why I chased after this one in particular, because for us, on a personal level, this is, for me, where it started.
Yeah.
I certainly didn't have one in 1981, nor could I afford one back then.
Yeah.
But I managed to be able to grab one in later stages of my life.
Wow.
Yeah, so what is it? It's a 1981 Tamiya Hilux. Some might argue that, you know, the Bruiser and the Mountaineer are also at that caliber, and they certainly are.
Yeah.
But bit more monster truck-ish.
I noticed that this is not
right
looking like a Tamiya Mountaineer.
Right. It's not a monster truck. It's a true sort of realistic with, you know, those tiny tires, which is what we're all about.
Yeah.
Hilux, which is a popular body out there. So that there is one of the originals. Another one that I truly like, which I would consider scale or realistic, would be the Blazing Blazer.
Yep.
I only
love those.
Yeah, I only know a few people that have one. Mike Kirby, if you ever want to donate it to GCM, we'd love to take it.
Got a spot for it right there.
Yeah, right there. But other than the Blazing Blazer, which was sort of a Baja style, this to me was the starting point for what we're doing. And I managed to get one. So
Wow.
why don't we talk about how I sort of got to this point and where I acquired this.
Man, how do you even start? Like, I don't even know where to look for an original Tamiya model.
They're out there. I mean, eBay, of course. There's a lot available on eBay, but
you never know what kind of condition they're in, though.
Sure.
I mean, they can say it's great, and maybe it's not. Like, at this age, don't you have to worry about like parts rotting and?
Yeah, absolutely.
I mean, this is an old truck now.
Yeah. Yeah. You know, and then you know the values on eBay. You know, we're not sure, and are you paying an escalated price for them on eBay?
Yeah.
But they're out there. But for the collector of Tamiya vintage, this for me is one of the holy grails, and I managed to pick this up as a trade from one of my builds. We went to go see a gentleman who used to own a business called Rocks and Shocks, which was a lot of fun. And
Great place.
Yeah, it was a really good place. Dave Rickards had this, and we somehow I negotiated a trade with him to be able to get this. So it's been 2 years in the making. I think it was almost 2 years ago that we went there.
I think it was 2 years ago.
And I've been patiently waiting for it to be completed. There's a lot of people that got me to this level, and certainly I want to give a shout out. So when I purchased, or when I traded it, when I got it, it had some great things about it and some flaws, so I needed to sort of work on that. So
was it built though?
So the chassis was built.
Kit?
The chassis was built.
Oh, okay.
It is originally a kit, and I would love anybody who has the original box that it came in. I'm interested in it, so let me know.
That'd be cool.
But I've got the interior box, and for those who are actually well rehearsed in Tamiya, I don't think this is an interior box. This would have been the box that if you had the kit and for some reason lost the body or destroyed your body and needed to go to the hobby shop and buy a new body, which they offered, this is what you would have got.
So that's the body kit.
Yeah. So it's a chassis with the original chassis with an original body, but I don't think they were together in 1981.
Yeah, okay, I know what you mean.
But all original. It was painted, but it was painted with Tamiya paint, and none of the original decals were put on it, and that's a key factor that we'll get into, because that for me is huge.
Yeah.
So I managed to give it to Andy Lowry, and for those who know the channel and know the industry, Andy Lowry is an incredible static and RC model builder.
He did the paint class at Ultimate Scale Truck Expo.
That's right. His painting is incredible. So he's a professional painter, auto painter.
Yeah.
So I asked him, and he had one. He had one when he was a kid.
Wow.
He literally had one of these ones. So I mentioned that I had one at USTE, the first one. The first original USTE.
2017.
Yeah, and I told him I had one, and he said, listen, you know what? I'd paint that for you. So I managed to ship it to him. I got it painted professionally with automotive paint in a Toyota color.
Wow.
From Andy Lowry. So that was huge. That was a big jumping off point for me to complete this.
I'm sure you can see in the video, this thing is friggin' gorgeous.
Yeah, it's the paint quality is unbelievable. I mean, it's automotive paint, and with it just looks amazing.
This thing is amazing.
Some might argue, and I wouldn't disagree with them, that the paint is actually too good for the original. If it was a 1-to-1, it's actually too good. But I'm okay with that. I'm certainly okay with the clear coat finish on it and how incredible the paint is.
Yeah, it's beautiful.
And maybe while we're talking about the body specifically and the paint, I touched on having the original decal sheet.
Did you not get decals with it?
Well, you did get decals with it, and I had the original decal sheet, but the decals weren't applied.
Okay.
So
they're just still on the...
Right.
Okay.
Right. So now you have this 35, 40-year-old decal sheet that's sitting there that has yet to be applied.
Oh.
So the nice advantage is that I could get it the body painted professionally and then be able to put the original decals on it, because I'm sure there's a bunch of restorers out there that have restored their body but had to peel their original decals off
to repaint
or restore, and then go buy, you know, some MCIs or some, and put some decals on this. Well, here's the opportunity where it's almost in reverse, where they were never applied. I was able to professionally get it painted or restored.
Wow.
And then be able to put an original decal sheet on it, which was huge for me because it's all original now.
Yeah, wow. So this is an authentic Tamiya kit undercarriage with the original tires.
Yep. No, repop tires, but original tires, just repops.
Okay.
There are 2 items that are not original on this, and I couldn't get. I mean, I can get them; they're out there, but they're so done. So these tires are original, re-released tires, if I can say that.
Okay.
So they look and feel like just the original ones, just repopped.
Okay.
The other thing that isn't original, but I have them, is these are the bumper stays for the front of it.
Oh, okay.
Someone out there makes the exact duplicates of the original, but they're not original.
These particular ones?
Those particular ones. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. But yeah, other than that, it's all original. And
wow.
Maybe we'll get into this. When I received the original, in its original condition from the trade, this was the mechanism box that came with it.
Yeah, they used to put all the servos and everything in the back, right?
Yeah, so here's the mechanism box that came with this particular truck. However, in my quest to make this as perfect as I could get it, there was this tab. You see this clear tab here, and then you can see that there's a metal tab here. So that's a repair. These tabs are used to center or align the body in the front. Well, it's common for those to break off.
Yeah.
And you'll see out there, if you talk to people, it's a common thing. It was a weakness in the design that these would break. And as I was putting this together, I kind of understood why. Just the way the chassis is designed and some of the components that goes on it, it puts a lot of stress on this one in particular.
Oh.
So I had to go out there and find one that was in relatively perfect condition, because that's what I wanted. And I got into a bidding war on eBay. So I do not want to tell you what I paid for it, but I literally was just going after a perfect one. I got it, and I'm happy I got it, but I certainly wasn't happy with the price I paid. So that was something that needed to be addressed.
I guess that's just, was it from age, or is there like an inherent flaw in that design?
And we'll take the body off and I'll explain that, but the speed controller, which is this big cube, has a bunch of wires that are coming out on the top of it. Okay. And if you don't necessarily have those wires tucked neat and tidy, they put a lot of pressure. Once you sort of clip everything together, they put a lot of pressure on that one particular tab. And I think over time, with driving it, it tends to snap off. And they're not very strong. They're, you know, again, it's a flaw in one of their only flaws in the design. Mm. So I think there's a lot of these. Well, there aren't a lot left, but if they are out there, they probably have a broken tab. So I was lucky enough to pick one up.
Good job finding that.
Yeah.
For a very antique truck build.
Yeah. Some of the things that so this body was painted, but none of the jewelry, as we can say, was put on it. So I was able to, you know, keep some of the original trees that came with it. And if you know, the way Tamiya does things, in the corner where it would say Tamiya, you know, the C tree, they put in a sort of a verbiage on the back. And over the years, when they do re-re's, that verbiage changes to update so that you know that it's a re-re and not a... do you know what I mean?
Mold, yeah.
Yeah, from the mold. So all of the verbiage that goes on the back of this, it's hard to read. I think it says 1/10 Toyota 4-wheel drive. It actually says 1981 on it.
Oh, wow.
I kept all of the trees only to keep and to convince anybody who were the doubters out there that this was some of the original components and jewelry that came with it.
That's crazy.
So I kept that.
Did you find those parts were brittle over age?
No, not really.
Really, eh?
They were still in pretty good condition.
Wow, that's crazy.
What was my biggest surprise, touching on that, was, speaking of brittle, was the decals.
Why is that? I mean, aren't they just stickers?
Yeah, so, and that's my assumption. And maybe we'll dive into this a little bit, because some of you will notice that this isn't quite the box art design. It is another design that was available on the sticker sheet, and was this particular livery was done in the original promotional video to Tamiya. Tamiya did a promotional videos, a bunch of them back then, and this is what they did. But Chris is just about to show you the original sort of box art look to it.
This has a, it looks the same except the door.
Yeah, so the 109, and there's a bottom sticker that's slightly different. So,
oh yeah,
what had happened with the decals, speaking of brittle, they were brittle. Sure, they were on the sticker sheet, and I still have some of the original, all the stickers.
Yeah.
And there's still some left in there in the packaging. I wanted to keep all of that, because even on the back of the sticker sheet it says, you know, there's a stamp from Tamiya that proves that it's 1982 or 81, sorry.
Wow.
But they didn't stick anymore. So you would cut them out, and they had no stickiness left to them. And another side note, that's when Tamiya didn't take licensing for anything, and would make a Budweiser sticker, and then Budweiser 2 years later would call them and go, hey, you know, you can't be doing that.
Yeah, they've already made like 1,000
of course, so the original decal sheet did not stick. So I said I had the original decal sheet, but one or two decals were cut out of it.
Yep.
In hopes that you know, they could sort of, after the first paint that was on it, they could create the box art, realizing that the stickers didn't stick, they were lost and gone. So this kind of, the 109 in particular was gone. One of them was gone, and there was another decal that goes below that was gone. So this steered me into the direction of this livery, which is original, and on the original promotional video they did this. But it's not the box art, if that makes any sense. So they were brittle, but I managed to get them on. So how do you get them on if they don't stick?
Yeah, you got me on that one.
Yeah, so that was a challenge. I had to spend, again, this is 2 years in the making, I had to spend some time really thinking about that, because you can only do this once, they're only original once.
Yeah.
And again, this was a big advantage to this one in particular, is having the originals. And it just dawned on me, I didn't want to use anything too acidic that would maybe melt the stickers or change the color or damage the paint after getting it professionally painted.
You can't spray it now either, because it's all painted.
That's right, yeah, you couldn't spray it, and I was worried about using Super 77 or spray adhesive or contact cement. I didn't know how that would react with the age of these particular decals. So all I used was your typical kid's glue stick.
Wow.
Yeah, and it seemed to work. Now, they've only been on this particular vehicle, it's been done for maybe 2 or 3 weeks. I don't know if the glue will last 30 years from now. I hope I'll still have it from 30 years from now and it'll still be sticking. But right from the get-go, it seems to have done a really good job. And
it sure does, actually.
And it actually contours to some of the lines. It stays stuck.
That's what I was going to say, because like even on the roll in the door here, the decal is like really well shaped still. But
because they were so fragile and you could really only put them on once, you couldn't necessarily peel them off and put them back on.
Man,
the decals that have gone on, if I rate it from 1 to 10, is about a 9.5, because there are a few spots. There's a bit of a wrinkle here and a bit of a wrinkle here, but I couldn't necessarily manipulate the stickers too much without damaging them. But I think I got where I needed to be.
I think you did really well.
Thank you. There was one 109 sticker left, and so I put it on the back right here just to pay homage to the box art.
Oh yeah.
So for those who preferred box art, that was the best thing I could do to pay homage to it. But had the original interior in it, had you know, the original Bruiser driver. I've added a few other things to it just to sort of, you know, give it a little bit more realism and scale. But here it is, 2 years in the making, and I have, in my opinion, one of the nicest Tamiya Hilux from 1981, professionally painted with original decal sheet, and about 98% original.
There's some features on this that still friggin' blow my mind.
Yeah, so perhaps it's a saying that it's a good opportunity maybe to take off the body and maybe look at some of the features that they did back then, which we love now, and in some aspects duplicate.
First of all, proper flag mirrors. You can keep going.
Yeah, yeah.
There's things that just pop into my head right away, like having nice flag mirrors on the vehicle looks so good. Like the mirror's legit.
Yeah, yeah.
They have, like, I mean, door handles, and like the bull bar on the front is amazing. But then you get into the technical stuff that totally blows my mind. Like, for instance, the locking hubs.
Yeah.
Who does that? Like, nobody has done locking hubs since this truck. I don't think there's a single other RC I've literally ever heard of that has locking hubs.
Just to go back, there's the two clear tabs that I went after on this one, and you can't see it on camera, but you can even see that these ones have a bit of a stress mark on them.
Oh, wow.
Where they've actually been under stress. They're completely intact, but they've got a bit of cloudiness where you can tell that they've been under stress. So, you know, super fragile, and you know, I'll definitely keep this on the shelf and not drive it too much.
So there's a method to getting this apart safely, if you will.
Yeah, absolutely.
It looks like all these bits actually sort of interlock.
Yeah.
Wow.
So I haven't really wired it up.
So much vintage here, it's crazy.
It's definitely vintage. Of course, we all love that old school Swiss watch, or transmission as I like to call it.
Yeah.
With 3-speed. I've gone through it. It seems to work correctly.
Wow.
Chris had mentioned the locking hubs, like, amazing, you know?
It's a twist lock.
Just
you
amazing.
You can lock or unlock the wheel off of the axle.
The
amazing
original speed controller. I haven't even gone into this. I would love to know what's inside it. I have no idea. It's a big mystery. Yeah, and then the axles. I've got one out here. This is the rear axle. I managed to get an extra set.
Wow.
I mean, they did a lot to make it look realistic back then. I mean, it's amazing. And to think that we're doing this now, and they did this in 1981.
That's just so crazy.
The leaf springs on it, they're hard to see, but the leaves, you know, all leaf sprung. Now, I would say the one, as I break everything, the one advantage that we do now that they didn't get right is, like, look at the suspension.
What suspension?
There is no give at all.
It kind of moves, but it's like you'd need to put a full-size truck on it to fix it.
Yeah. So aesthetically, it looks correct, but functionality is another thing for sure.
Oh boy.
I have the optional original shocks on it, which were an option for this one in particular.
Wow.
So I've got that. Yeah, I mean, to get this and to have it in the condition and to be a fan of Tamiya, especially vintage, and you know us, we love our vintage stuff.
Wow.
And then for it to tie into exactly what we do as a hobby, it was a dream come true for me. So, you know, I'm going to need to thank Andy Lowry for painting the body. I need to thank Dave Rickards for wanting to trade. And then, you know, just I'm so happy that this is here, and now I have an opportunity to share it with all of you guys and do a rig review on it. So, yeah.
Oh, amazing.
Yeah.
Just amazing.
And you know, they even, you know, as you know, it was waterproof back then too, because they had that mechanism. It all kind of sealed. They have little seals on the top of the, you know, that would have been a little seal, and then, you know, a little plug on them.
Like that's the antenna, I think, right? For the
I'm not sure what that is.
maybe?
Yeah, maybe. But there are a few more scattered throughout.
Wow.
And then, you know, you'll always see these three-speed transmission with silicone. They asked you to silicone as you put it together.
Yeah.
So yeah, and then
seal it up.
The ESC or whatever it is, the speed controller, it's got some silicone to it. So yeah, it's
wow.
It's a nice piece. And then, you know, the nice thing too is, and I showed it earlier, but you know, it's not the original box that the whole kit would have come in, but again, here's an original box.
That's so crazy.
Yeah. So
for it to be still saved after all these years, you know.
Yeah, and an original, one of the original, you know.
Wow.
Instruction booklets. Now this is specifically for the body.
Yeah.
But then you get into, you know, all your Tamiya clubs, and you can print out, not original, but you can print out the manual and be able to restore it or build it or what have you. So
isn't it nice there that we can make use of the RC community like that?
Yeah.
I mean,
sure
there's so many guys that are geeked right out about this vintage Tamiya stuff, and you can get help and resources for all this stuff. Like I mean, how many times just in 2018 have we heard of somebody who has a bunch of vintage stuff up in an attic somewhere?
Right.
And they pull it out, and I don't even remember what this is, you know, and how would I ever find parts for this? And now there's whole communities that are dedicated to this online. It's so cool.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So cool.
Yeah. So, you know, this is where it began. And some may argue that, and that's fine. There's probably something out there that may have been before and may have been after. But for me, growing up, knowing the brand, this is where it started for me.
Yeah.
And to have this one in our arsenal of trucks is pretty special. So I wanted to make sure that you guys could see it, do a rig review on it, talk about it, and thank everyone that got me to this point. It's a special build.
Wow.
It probably won't see the trail. If it does, it would be on asphalt or nice sand level. Maybe get the tires dirty for authenticity.
Dusty.
Dusty.
Yeah.
But that would be about it. It's gonna sit on a shelf as a shelf queen. I hate to say that word. But it definitely will sit on a shelf and be looked at and enjoyed for years to come.
Well done.
Thank you.
2 years of sourcing parts and getting the right equipment, the right paint, the right everything.
Yeah.
I mean, that's a real challenge some days.
For sure. Yeah, for sure. And part of the joy, though, right? Like, that was a lot of time and effort and angst. And you know, like I had to ship this body to Andy, right?
I remember that.
And you know, try to find a replacement.
I know.
You know, and so
it's like giving away half of your child. You know, like
exactly,
irreplaceable thing.
Yeah. So there was some risk involved. So to ship this to across the country, across a border, was a bit risky. But it came back and to Andy's to thank Andy, like then I need him to return it back to me in a package that's going to be safe and sound, and he did all that. He appreciated what it was and knew what it was, so he certainly took the time to make sure it came back to me. And it's, look at it, it's beautiful.
That's amazing.
Like, it's just the detail on this is just amazing. So kudos to everyone, and yeah, so I'm excited, and I get to look at it for the next 30 years and then pass it on to my son or someone else and have fun with it.
Great job.
Thanks. Thank you.
If you guys have vintage Tamiya stuff, We want to see your links in the comments. If you have a favorite Tamiya group that you like to get together with online, then post a link for that too, so we can expand our sort of link horizon, if you will, and get involved in new communities. Do you have one of these?
Right. Love to see it.
Love to see it. Post that up. Put a link for your channel or your Facebook or picture group, whatever it is. Love to see that. Is there anything for this that you're missing?
I don't think so. I would say, and this is where you came in, there's this little bar that holds the speed controller, which I didn't have the original, so I had Chris manufacture one, but it's just like a rod end with a nut on it. It was easy. But for the most part, I think it's all there. Some may argue that there's no antenna on the back of this, but I do have that somewhere. I just didn't put it on so I could carry it around. I don't think it's missing. Some of the purists out there would look at the front end and see these bars going across here and say, well, they're too small. Well, here's the originals.
Right.
I just thought this was a little bit better scale appearances, but I've kept all of the original stuff that came with it, all the little locking hubs, and there was one or two that were damaged that I replaced. You know, there's still some original shocks that came in with it, so I have it. Here's, you know, the what do you call those? To hold the axles. U-bolts. U-bolts. I have some original U-bolts.
That's crazy.
So I would think that I have. Again, it's about 98% original. So I don't think I'm missing anything. And you know, for those who are true experts out there, feel free to critique it or see if there's anything missing. But I think I have everything. I was posting some of the progress on the build out there on IG, and someone said, oh, I think you're missing the plugs to the transmission, but they're there. All the plugs are there to the transmission. And again, those are some of those waterproof plugs that we talked about.
Wow.
So I would like to think that it's all there. From my knowledge base, I think it's all there. But I'm certainly open to any critiques or anything that's missing, because then there's something I can chase after and make sure it's 100%.
So maybe this is the only video art decal scheme that's out there.
Maybe.
I didn't even know that there was a difference between the video theme and the actual box art until Dana pointed it out. That's crazy. Yeah, you've got I think I've seen a white one, and the cool thing about that promotional video, I love those promotional videos from Tamiya back in the old days, eh? Like the sort of the 8-bit sound that they inlay in the back. You know. And I just love them, and they're all grainy. Like the video was, you know, not great per se. I mean, it was 1981. But I love watching them. And in that promotional video, they did a white one, a blue one, and a red one with the Midnight Motors off-roaders. Yeah. And so I've seen someone out there, I think in the Tamiya Club, do a white one with this particular livery. But I don't know if there's a red one with this particular livery. So yeah, there are a few out there, but I've got one. It's very well done. Yeah. A real collection of art and modeling and technical genius on this. Like, I mean, this would have blown anybody's mind in 1981 to have a miniature with a 3-speed and locking hubs and looking like a real truck. Yeah. You know? Yeah, for sure. With leaf spring suspension and stuff like this. Like, I mean, in 1981, I was driving Radio Shack RCs. You know what I mean? The turbo hopper. And, and then I got into some of the early RC stuff that was, you know, off-brand. You know, I had an MRC back then and some of that stuff, which was far less common than these. But that's all I could afford on my lawn mowing budget, you know what I mean? So, I mean, this wasn't cheap back then. This was not cheap, so you know, the rich kid down the street had this, right? Yeah. And then he smashed it to bits and then put it away, and then, you know, later in life we find them and restore them. Congratulations on finding one that's this nice. Thank you very much. I mean, it was built obviously, but not abused by any standard. No, for sure. And I mean, we've talked about it before, but in this particular video, we might as well talk about what was your first Tamiya? It was a Boomerang. Boomerang. And man, I wanted that so bad. Yeah. I wanted that kit so bad, and it took me a long time to save the money for that. And I finally did. and I loved the kit. I loved building it, and I absolutely hated 1500 milliamp nickel cadmium batteries. I just hated them. Could never get them charged properly. They got 4 minutes of runtime. It was just so disappointing, but I loved the buggy. Loved the build. Loved the look of it. It was wide and low, you know what I mean? And I just thought that was the most fantastic car ever. I was so happy with it.
It was a neat build.
Yeah.
I think they did a bunch that were similar to that, like the Hot Shot, and they all had a similar platform. I think they had different shock setups, but yeah, that was a cool build, and certainly one that I wanted as a kid. Also, my first was I got a used Hornet.
Oh yeah.
Tamiya Hornet, and I was lucky enough that the guy that I got it off of, one of the flaws of the Hornet was the plastic front suspension hoop would snap off after the first jump, and so this particular individual that I got created this like thin aluminum or steel bracket that kind of gave it support.
Oh wow!
And it sort of bolted to the chassis, and that was kind of neat. And so that was my first sort of dive into the Tamiya world back then, and
yeah,
I loved it too. And it had those. Those balloon spiky tires.
Yeah.
You racing around the asphalt, and in 5 minutes, all the spikes would be gone. And
man,
it was a lot of fun.
Building hours in the yard, building the little dirt tracks and jumps, and just so much fun. So much fun with these.
Now, where I grew up, and we sort of grew up in the same area, but I never saw one of these as a kid. Did you ever see one of these as a kid?
I can't remember one of these. I remember seeing the other ones.
Yeah.
I remember seeing the Bruiser a couple times and thinking, wow, I wish I could have one of those 3-speed, the whole bit. Blew my mind.
Mm-hmm.
I don't think I've ever seen this original ScaleTruck Hilux build, ever.
Yeah. I never saw one as a kid. I think the nicest one I saw back then, and it was a few years later, was like the Avante, and that was quite the trick to me back then. But I never got to see these.
I did in the Tower Hobbies catalog.
Oh yeah. Wanted and loved the Tower Hobbies
just
catalog.
Stare at that thing for hours, like. It's like what we do. We do that now on the internet, right? You get on RPP or any of these or websites where there's lots of stuff to look at, and you just
for sure.
Just keep scrolling. You know what I mean? It's crazy. I used to do that with my Tower Hobbies. I still have a big collection of my original RC Car Action magazines.
Nice.
I have lots of original Tower Hobbies magazines, and there were full-page, fold-out RC10 gold pan cars that fold out. It was incredible stuff. Advertising, like, wow, it's incredible back then.
Of course, the RC car RC magazines back then, the Tower Hobbies, we usually would be almost towards the back.
Yeah.
And there'd be about 5 or 6 pages, and it would have that sort of red border around it. And you would just and my father purchased, and we've done a rig review on it, is the Marui Bill Elliott Thunderbird, which was advertised in Tower Hobbies, and he ordered it from Tower Hobbies for me for Christmas. And that was sort of my next vintage RC from the Hornet, and I loved it. And of course I had then, because I ordered from Tower Hobbies, I automatically got a subscription to their catalog for the next year or something. So every 3 months you would get this sort of biannually magazine from Tower Hobbies, and you just like,
I know.
Yeah, lots of fun. For sure. It's great reminiscing, and having all of these. Cool.
Oh boy, this was fun.
Yeah.
I'm so glad you brought this out.
Thank you.
Hope you guys enjoyed the review and the video and all the different views of the truck and Dana's handiwork, and just appreciate some of this original metalwork in this ancient Tamiya model. Really excited that you could bring it over and show it off, so thank you so much.
Well, thank you, and I'm thankful that I can do a rig review and as you say, show it to everyone. So thanks for watching, people. Tiny Truck salute.
Cheers, guys.
Cheers.
Bye-bye.